what that Bible actually means by obedience. Biblical obedience is deeper than you think. Just listen to me for a second. We all know what obedience means, and it's all throughout the Bible. It feels like every time I'm doing adult Sunday school, it always leads back to obedience to God in everything that you do. Grace is there, but obedience is the basic foundation for being a Christian. Listening, doing, and leading, okay? We're not talking about perfection. We're not talking about what obedience is to us, but what it is in Scripture. Now, I have two verses here. I think they're great. If you'll bear with me, stay with me, and listen. John 14:15. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. Jesus is going through here on John, talking to his disciples again. And then after he says that, just a little bit farther down on verse 23, Judas, not of Iscariot, and Peter and Thomas, or Philip and Thomas, are struggling with what Jesus is saying. But it's great that he says that. A few other things, of course, that are important, but you get down to verse 23. If anyone loves me, he will keep my word, and my Father will love him, and he will come to him and make our home with him. They're struggling with behavior. And I'm here to tell you that obedience is not behavior or modification to who you were before. When you are saved and are a Christian man leading his family, being useful in the church, and going out into your job, it is the love expressed through submission to Christ. And that's how obedience builds up. Another verse I got for you. You still here? All right. 1 Samuel 15:22. Now, Samuel and Saul are kind of going back and forth here. Saul is hurt that Samuel isn't okay with what happened in this chapter 15. But in 22 and 23, Samuel says, has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifice as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to listen than the fat of rams. For rebellion is a sin of divination, and presumption is an inquiry of idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king. Samuel is angered with Saul because he's not listening and leading as God had said. And it's important to show that we're not always going to sacrifice ourselves and all this that we think we have to do. And you know, in the Old Testament, sacrifices are here, I surrender to you. And thankfully we have Christ. We don't have to do that anymore. But we're still called to be obedient. Then they're thinking, okay, I'll just sacrifice and it'll be okay. But it still comes down to the obedience to God. So, two common errors. Obedience equals legalism. No, Scripture never says that. Grace causes obedience. Or grace cancels obedience, sorry. No, modern Christianity rips faith away from submission, yet Scripture doesn't. You can't think you can do whatever you want and then just ask for forgiveness. Grace leads us to want to submit to Christ and to be obedient to Him. This is similar to our normal lives. Job's, we have family, health, our private moments of obedience. Small, consistent patterns build us in all of these areas of our lives. Job showed that we can do that in our job, we can do that with our family, in our private times that we have. It is important to focus on the little things we can do to build that obedience when we come from starting nowhere. I've been a Christian for many years, and it's not till you start doing the little stuff, the reading your scripture, the prayer, the loving on your kids and your wife, and it builds. And that conviction to do more for God in your small little task becomes so much more important, and it continues to grow in what else you can do. Remember that. Obedience is not loud. It's not. When you do it privately, when you try to cuss less at work, but it is so costly. It takes time, a lot of effort. That's why a lot of people aren't obedient to God. Focus on Christ no matter what. The obedience comes through your study. You get that sanctification process going in a beautiful way to where you're not focusing on the sin anymore, but you're focusing on Christ and everything that you do, and you continue to build the gospel stronger and stronger from you, your family, your church, locally, then however big you can go, depending on God's will. This is Sword and Banner Press. I appreciate you. Appreciate it if you would subscribe. Give me a like. Comment down below what other things in life you'd like me to talk about. We're going to be doing some Bible studies in the future. If you haven't yet, I'll link it down below. Sewing the Body is kind of the behind the scenes and quicker videos that aren't super structured. I did a what I'm doing Bible reading plan and what kind of books I'm going to be reading in the first half of 2026. I would appreciate it if you would check those out. Give me some recommendations, and maybe it'll give you some recommendations. See you later.